much detail do you want?
As much as you want.
Uh, let's see, born and raised in Gardner. I went to Gardner Public Schools, off to college, went to the Mount, went to UMass Amherst, got a master's degree from Anna Maria College, was working in the private sector. 2001 comes around, and there was a job opening in the city of Gardner, and I applied on the last minute of the last day, and I got the job. So I started working in municipal government in October of 2001, worked for the city of Gardner for almost 18 plus years as grants administrator, assistant director of development and planning, and then mayor. And then, due to circumstances beyond my control, I saw this position open up, and it's still working in local government. It's doing what I like to do. It's the budget stuff. It's the working on local aspects, the stuff that really touches people's lives every day. So, I consider myself fortunate to be able to work in North Central Massachusetts, and
That's the first time I.
right in the general area where I was born and raised.
Yes, tell me a little bit more about that. When you saw the job open, what
This
made
one?
you want to? Yeah, what made you want to take the town administrator job in Westminster?
Well, I didn't think about it at first. It was advertised, and I didn't apply. But then what really kicked it off was the city council determined that everyone in the city will get a cost of living increase, except the mayor. And that means would have gone 4 years with a 0% increase, and that's 8 out of 14 years with a 0% increase. We've had studies done that said you shouldn't do that. The mayor's position is already underpaid. It has to increase at least as much as everyone else. But for whatever reason, it was a split decision on the city council, and I felt for my family's best interest that, okay, perhaps it's time to look elsewhere, and that's when I think it was the very next day that I submitted an application for this position, the second time that it was advertised.
Yeah.
So like I said, it was, maybe the stars were aligning in some cosmic way that the position was going to be filled by another applicant. They backed out. They had to re-advertise and change some things around, and the timing was either the best or the absolute worst, depending how you look at it, because I did get elected the next day.
Yeah. So on that, was it difficult decision right there? Because you were reelected as mayor.
Yeah, it's an awkward situation, and difficult, absolutely. I grew up in Gardner, and I loved working for the city. I like to, the reason I never saw any other office, like a rep or a senator or Congress or anything like that, is because I see those positions and they vote on something that may affect something down the road, and it does this. But as mayor, it's, that playground's busted up. I'm gonna fix that playground, and then you fix the playground. You get that hands-on, fix-it type of stuff done. And that's why I think local government is really where it's at. It's where the rubber meets the road. It's the most accessible of all the government officials, because your state rep, they're not as accessible. They're in Boston more. Your senator is covering a larger district. They're in Boston a lot, and all the way up. The state, the mayor or the selectman or something like that in local government, you're going to see at the diner, you're going to see at the restaurants, you're going to see at the baseball games, hockey games. So it's a 24/7 job. And it was good for a long time. Right near the end there were some things that were starting to grate on me, because there were perhaps a gadfly or two that just same thing over and over, and it's disruption just for the sake of disruption. And I think they know that, and I think that's why they do it. So it started grating on me, and then like I said, the straw that broke the camel's back was the complete and utter lack of respect for the position, not for me, for the position, from the city council. So I said, you guys are so smart, well, you can figure it out now.
Yeah. So how's the transition been so far?
Again, awkward.
Yeah.
So they were looking for someone to start here as soon as possible, and because their town administrator had retired already, so they had brought her back out of retirement, and she was working a couple days a week to keep things going. So I wanted to have a bit of an overlap so I could suck 19 years of knowledge out of her as much as I could. So I've been doing sort of two jobs for the last couple weeks. This morning up until 9:30 I was in Gardner doing mayoral duties and signing contracts and talking to people. So it's been a lot of double duty, which again is awkward. And for 12 years I've pushed to have the City of Gardner charters rewritten. It was written in 1921, adopted in 1923, and it wasn't 12, 15 great men and women of the time sitting around coming up with these fantastic ideas. It was the town council that was tasked with, hey, you should try and write a city charter for us. So it copied a lot of Mass General laws from 1921. Now, from 1921 to 2020, 100 years later, a lot of those laws have been repealed, they've been changed, but not in the City of Gardner, because they just copied those general laws at the time. So there's a lot of things in the charter that are outdated that should be reworked, and I've said from day one when I was elected, we should have a charter review committee, and if that charter review committee says, let's go to a city manager form of government, I don't think that's a bad thing, because then you are guaranteed a certain level of professionalism and experience in that position. If not, you have an election and you get what you get.
Yeah.
Maybe you get a great person, maybe you don't get a so great person, and those are the chances you take in any election. The city council, specifically one city councilor, has been adamantly against this and has stonewalled it and shot it down at every turn. So much so that there have been 3 appointed committees entirely by the city council. The last committee was the Charter Review Committee, in which they gave me a single appointment, and the person I appointed was a 20-something year former city councilor. So the city council basically drove that whole bus and then didn't like the result. Each time the committee said the charter needs to be reviewed. So now we have a situation where it doesn't recognize a vacancy in the office, basically, unless I'm dead. So if I resign, that's great. I still have to get sworn in.
Yeah.
And then I have to resign again, because it doesn't recognize a vacancy in the mayor-elect's position, because it states that the mayor-elect can be sworn in on Monday or at any subsequent city council meeting. So if I never get sworn in, I can't resign. It just goes on and on. The city charter also lacks, I think, it lacks any recall provision. So I can get sworn in on Monday and then never resign. And for 2 years, the city of Gardner can do nothing but pay me and try and figure out how to operate. That's in the city charter. It's a poorly written document from 100 years ago.
Yeah.
That needs to be changed.
So you're in somewhat of an awkward situation here.
Yeah, we're trying to make the best of it, and I think the former and incoming city council gets it. There was a very long and detailed memorandum from the law department explaining their findings several weeks ago, and maybe a month ago now. So the city council was fully aware of it. But it's an awkward situation that didn't need to be.
Yeah. So moving forward, how do you think that your time as a mayor is going to help you here as town administrator?
If I was mayor of Brockton, it's a very different position. You have a lot more staff, and you're a little more removed from the nitty-gritty stuff. Gardner is a small enough city where I was the one that wrote the budget. I didn't hand it to the accounting department or something like that and have them write it. It was me sitting down with each of the department heads, going over every line item in the budget and figuring out the revenues and the expenses. It was me that was very involved in going down to the DPW and saying, okay, what are we working on here, and how do we get this done, and things like that. And that's really what town administrator or town manager does. It's them doing a lot of this nitty-gritty stuff, and that's the part of the position I really liked. The political stuff, I guess I put up with it. Sometimes it was fun, sometimes it was god awful. It does require a lot of out of the house and away from my family, the political aspect of it all. So with a TATM position, I still get the nitty-gritty stuff that I like to do, and I lose that political stuff. So there's a little more work-life balance too.
Yeah.
Because when I first got elected, it was just me and my wife, and you can work 80 hours, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then once my son came along, now it's various things. I've always been involved in athletics. I've been a basketball coach, soccer coach, still a hockey coach. So I'm very involved there, and I think this will, provide a little better work-life balance.
Yeah. So as much as this was a decision for you, it was a decision for your family as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.